Yo, it's Digital Diego, and I'm doing something a little bit different right now. I usually don't make these types of videos. I think the last video I did like this was my testimony. Um, so yeah, this is kind of another video like that regarding my background with music. And I wanted to kind of talk about this to actually to to encourage you and at the same time share a little bit of my background with music and how it all connects to what I do today. So, I wanted to start off with way before I even gave my life to Jesus, way before I even started making music, and just talk about a little bit of my my love for music. You know, when I grew up, I uh I just always was in love with different styles of music, different genres, right? Um I grew up listening to, like the classics, like Michael Jackson and Prince, um, classic rock, like AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, Van Halen, Def Leppard. Those are amazing bands growing up, classics. And old school hip hop, like the 80s, 90s. I was a huge fan of, West Coast hip hop specifically, like Ice Cube and Snoop, um, Easy E, all the classics, and then underground stuff. Um, Huge fan of SPM growing up. Um, just I can go on and on and on. 50 Cent, Eminem, all of the classics, right? And then I grew up in the early 2000s listening to, you know, all the early 2000s hip hop and R&B music, from T-Pain to Ludacris to Kanye to Jay-Z, and it just goes on and on, the whole list, right? I've always been fascinated with music, from Spanish music like reggaeton, cumbias, um, and just a bunch of music that most people don't know about. Just I've always been into like discovering artists and songs that most people don't know about, but that are, fire. Um, I always took pride in that, trying to find those songs and then show them to people and you know, make them experience what I experienced when I first heard those songs or those artists. Um, yeah, and over time, I continued to search for more music and discovered new sounds. Like I got into reggae later, and that even to this day is now my favorite genre. And but let me kind of back up a little bit before I go into creating it. Um, I started writing, just writing my raps, writing nothing serious. It was just for fun, writing lyrics and just little simple bars. Middle school, high school days. And I was the kid that would like, make the beats on the table with the the pencils and the pens. Um I was always, in my head just making melodies without even thinking about it. And yeah, I just really was into it like that. And at the same time though, that was my hobby. That was just a thing I did on the side. The main thing in my life, throughout most of my life, was school, because I was taught that, to get a good education and to make a good living with, a good job, a good career. And there's nothing there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing against that. That's awesome. But the thing where I had conflict later was when I had that inner battle between what I love to do versus what the world says we should do, you know? So let me make that a little bit more clear regarding my life. I was always on the path to go on the medical field, right? I you know, it's a good, secure, well-paying, respectful job, career path to take, right? So I had decided to go the medical route, to go to medical school, to become a doctor, right? My my family, specifically my dad, was very passionate for me to go there. He really wanted me to go that route. And I was like, "All right, I think that makes sense. I'm interested in science. I think it's fascinating as well." Um and I'm mentally uh I mentally prepared myself to go that route, and I was dedicated. I was willing to do it, and I did. Um I did go that route, but let me back up a little bit. I feel like I'm going too fast. I'm kind of just, saying whatever comes to my mind with all of this. So we'll see how long this video ends up being. But yeah. So I've always been interested in music. I started making my raps, my little, rhymes. And then eventually I got an app on my phone that allowed me to create beats and even record my own voice. So I made my songs. Nothing crazy professional, but enough to at least hear myself for the first time um in from speakers, right? From my headphones. And I thought that was so cool. I can actually write something, record it on a beat that I made or a beat that I found, and add special effects to make it sound a little bit more professional. At 13, 14 years old, that's like super cool, you know? Because at that time, to have a song, you have to go to a studio, or you have to know what you're doing, or take it to someone who knows what they're doing to really make it sound good, like an actual studio quality sound. And I was able to do that on my phone. Not at that level, but to a point where like, yo, this is kind of cool. This is fun. So I started playing around with it, and eventually, um, my 17 uh my 17th birthday's coming up, and I wanted a DJ turntable set. That's what I wanted, because I've always loved playing music for people, and I was like, oh, what if I can, like, make my own mixes? I have my own music that I like to listen to. Let me just mix it and do some cool turntable stuff. And my dad was the one actually that suggested, or actually he didn't even know. He thought that the turntable machine made the beats. And I was like, no, 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 you don't make the beats. You just mix other songs together. And then he was like, oh, I thought you were going to make your own music. But then I got the idea. I was like, oh, you know what? I like that idea better. I want to make my own beats. Yeah. And at that time, I already knew about FL Studio, which is a program where you can make your own music. I still use it to this day. And I decided to go get that program instead of the turntable. And that's when I officially started to dive into the music world of music production. So, just like anything in life, whenever you start something new, it can be exciting, but it can also be challenging at the same time and frustrating, right? Because you don't know how it works. You have to spend the hours to learn how the program works, and you're going to have a lot of problems, and it's not going to sound the way you want it to sound, and all this stuff. So it took me several months to finally get the hang of it, to the point where I'm like, okay, I can make something decent. And that's when I started to really practice and hone my craft over time. And eventually, I got decent enough to start uploading my music online. And then I got really inspired by other producers I saw at the time that were selling their beats online. They were making money. I was like, wow, that's the dream. You get to make stuff that you love to do and then make money off of it. That's sounds awesome. I want to try it. By this time, I'm a college student studying medicine, or pre med, studying pre med to become um, a doctor. That was the goal. But on the side, I was like, all right, let me see if I can make some money and practice, making my music. So that's what I did. Long story short, I continue on and I end up having my own website. I have my own logo, I have my own producer name. I was Green Alien Productions, right? I was into aliens and all this, you know, spacey stuff. And it was pretty cool. I was promoting my stuff on Twitter. I was very I was very active on Twitter, and I would just talk to a lot of rappers, talking to them about my beats. And I made some decent money, nothing crazy, but for a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, that was really cool. Like, wow, I'm making some money on the side for doing what I love to do. This is really cool. But then I did that for a couple years. And again, I'm still studying. My main goal here is studying in this part of my life. And eventually, I go into medical school. I got accepted. And that's when my music activity, my music life kind of just faded out into the background. And then my forefront of my life was studying for the exams, right? Which is understandable. Now it's time to be serious about my career. And, it takes a lot of time to study in medical school and to do well and to be productive and all of that. And then, a social life, that was a whole nother experience, an amazing experience. But eventually, I'm on my third year of medical school, and medical school is 4 years total. So I'm on my third year at this time, and I am I'm missing that music passion that I had. As in, I'm missing it, like I miss doing it, right? I'm like, oh, I want to make music again. I want to. Something in me is telling me I should go back. I should take that more seriously. But of course, the problem is I'm studying medicine. I'm supposed to be a doctor in a year at this time. And of course, my family and the world in general respects doctors, and this is the route to take. Makes good money and all of that. It's a perfect career path, right? On paper. But the problem is that's not truly what I wanted to do, right? It's not my true passion, you know? And I had to make that decision because I had to make that decision um relatively quickly because I had a year left. And after that year I graduate, and then I'm supposed to get into, the actual working as a doctor, the field of actually working as a doctor, getting paid and starting my career. Or I was going to say, no, I'm actually going to go and change that and do this path, this music path. Now, that's a big decision, right? That's a huge decision. And it's kind of scary because most people, especially my family, my dad, would would not like that decision, right? So that's actually exactly what happened. I decided to change paths, to switch gears of my life because I wanted to do do music. I wanted to go that route with my life. I couldn't imagine myself doing medicine for the rest of my life. For other reasons I'm not going to get into, but I just wasn't feeling anymore. It just wasn't it. My passion, my not even passion, my interest in medicine just started decreasing the more I lived it out, and my passion for music increased. And this was before I gave my life to Christ. So actually, at this same time, I was becoming more spiritual. Not following Jesus, but spiritual as in, um, law of attraction, manifestation. Um, if you don't know my story, there's another video, a really long video of my whole life story regarding my testimony. But I went into that path while I was seeking more understanding of my life purpose. So I made that decision. And, you know, family didn't understand, dad didn't like it, really didn't like it, but I just knew I was supposed to go this route. I had faith that the universe was gonna, you know, make it work out. But anyway, fast forward a little bit, and I am living in my own apartment in California. And I had just, that's a whole nother thing, but I was out there by myself starting this new chapter of my life to pursue music. And at the same time, I also decided to start a business, an online business, to be a life coach. So to help people achieve their dreams and to teach them spiritual things that I've learned along the way. Again, this is not biblically based. This is just that spirituality stuff that I was practicing. But then, about 2, maybe 3 months into that, that's when I found Jesus. That's when I had that spiritual revelation, a spiritual awakening of who Jesus was and what he did for us, right? That he died, he rose from the dead for all of us so we can be forgiven, so we can have eternal life, and so that we can have a relationship with him now. And once I made that decision, that's when I started to, that's when he started to show me my life purpose, and seeing the world in a new perspective, right? Specifically in this context, I started seeing music very differently. I um I started seeing how dark this this music industry is. You know, all those songs that I grew up listening to, not all of them, but a lot of them, especially the hip hop. Um yeah, they have good catchy melodies, the beats are dope, and it's cool. But then I started seeing and hearing the darkness behind it, um the spiritual significance behind it, you know, the content behind it. It's like, whoa, it's talking about drugs and sex and violence. And I was aware of it, but I didn't really care. I didn't really think too much about it. That was just cool, right? That's what rap is. They talk about that. They talk about that. But then once I had my spiritual eyes opened and I'm trying to walk in the light with Jesus, that stuff now irritates my soul. And I'm like, oh no, 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 no. I don't want to be a part of that. That's something's not right. That makes me uneasy in my spirit. And this is kind of, sometimes I overlook this, but I think it's kind of miraculous. I actually I actually I didn't delete it, but I just literally stopped listening to my old Spotify playlist that I took pride in. Even before Spotify, I was downloading every single song that I found into my phone. And then later Spotify came up and I transferred it over there and made my own playlist, like a huge playlist of every single song that I liked, you know? And I took pride in that. Like, oh, I got 2,000 songs. Ooh, I got 3,000 songs. And I just took pride in having a large um, library of songs. And when I gave my life to Christ, I was willing to let that go, which that's all because of God. He gave me the strength to do that. And of course, I started a new playlist that is Christian based, or at least songs that bring life instead of darkness, right? Um and then I started thinking about my own passion for music. I started seeing music more than just, oh, it's cool to make. Yeah, it's fun. Now I see the ability to use this as a tool, as a medium to help other people get to know Christ, to lead them to the truth. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty powerful. Because now I started seeing how Satan was using music to bring people to the darkness. So why can't I use it to bring people to the light, you know? It really inspired me, it really convicted me of using the talents and the desires and the passions God gave me to use it for his kingdom, you know? So I really had that fire in me to to use that and to move forward with it, even if I had no idea how that was gonna turn out. Because his word says to walk by faith and not by sight. So I was like, all right, I'm excited. I'm praying about this. I want God to help me. And again, it's not about me, it's to lead people to Him, it's to glorify Him, it's all for His glory. But I still need to do the work, right? So that's what I was praying for, and that's what I was striving for. And then during this time, after I gave my life to Christ, pretty quickly I started going on Omegle, which is actually where I heard the gospel. Where I met another Christian that told me about Jesus and got me thinking about um, all of these spiritual things. So I went back on there and I started sharing the gospel with those people that I ran into. And I did that for about a year. I wasn't recording it. I was just there on my own time, uh, just talking to people. And after about a year, God really put in my spirit to record those videos. Record those videos and post them online. And I'm like, I'll be honest, I didn't want to do it because it's already awkward enough for me to talk to people about Jesus and I'm still new to the faith and I don't really know how to speak and I don't feel qualified. All these excuses. But eventually I did it. I started recording it and my first 2 or 3 videos, I posted them and then I asked God, like, God, do you really want me to do this? Did I hear you? Can you please confirm this to me? Make it clear that this is the way you want me to go because I thought it was music. Now you want me to do this, like video content stuff? How does my music tie into this? And I said, all right, God, because at this time, I was getting like maybe 300 views per video on Instagram. And I said, all right, God, if this is really what you want me to do, make it clear to me. Show me and I said this, 10,000 views. That way I know this is you. This is not a coincidence. It's not like you know, uh, it's not like my own thoughts or anything like that. And that was at night. I posted a video. Next morning, it's crazy. I had 11,000 views on that video. It just blew my mind. I'm so used to seeing 300 views. I just prayed to God to show me 10,000 and he shows me 11,000. It blew my mind. I was like, "Whoa. Okay, God. Okay. You're obviously leading me in this route." And I continued doing it, right? And that specific video reached more and more and more and more views as the days continued on. From 11,000 to 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, 100,000, 300,000. And I'm just looking at this like it's literally blowing up. I've never experienced anything like that before. 800,000, a million, 1 point, and it just keeps going up and up and up. Followers skyrocket. All my other videos are going viral. It's going crazy. And I'm just like amazed, shocked, and just it's overwhelming to be honest. And I'm like, all right, all glory to God. And now, I have a platform to share this with people. And I say this to say that even though I initially was really striving for the music to take off, that never happened. Instead, this happened. And I'm thinking, well, God, I know you wanted me to do music. Why? I don't understand, right? And now I'm starting to really see that, well, there's different layers to this, but here's one of the layers that when we ask God for something, we tend to expect God to answer in a certain way. Like in my mind, I'm praying and working towards music. I'm expecting the music to just take off one day. Hopefully sooner than later. That's how we all want it. We want it now. All right, my camera almost died, so we're back. We tend to think that God's going to answer in certain ways, but we're basically putting a box on God by doing that. God's ways are always better. He's going to do it however he sees fit, however he sees that's the best possible outcome because he wants the best for us, right? So I say that because I've been looking at my life in regards to the ministry with music and these videos I've been making. And I see that God actually, he knows what he's doing. You know, I'm barely catching up to some of the plans that he's doing. I see that he made me have a platform by doing these conversational videos, by allowing me to speak to other people, speak to this younger generation. And now that I have a platform, which within itself is already blessing a lot of people, now he's making room for the music to take place and to impact people. And I've been seeing that over time, slowly but surely, you know, because to me, he's shown me that that is actually like a bigger thing that's part of my life. But even though that's not how it is today, you know, and again, it goes back to that verse, walking by faith and not by sight. In this physical world, it doesn't seem how it's supposed to be, at least in my mind, or what he's shown me yet. Because it's on his timing, it's not my timing. And I've learned that most of the time he takes much longer for the plans to come into fruition so that we can be prepared, so that he can build our character over time. So whenever it is time for that breakthrough to happen, we will be ready and we will be able to handle it, you know? So I say this not just to talk about my story, but also to encourage you. Whatever God has called you to do in your life, it may not be about music. It may be something completely different. Whatever passions and desires and talents that you have, He wants to use that because He didn't just give it to you for no reason. He wants to use it for His glory, to lead other people to Him, right? And there's a verse that's very popular, and it's usually in a different context, but in this context, I'll kind of explain it. And that verse is actually right here on my wall. It's James 2:17, which says, "Faith without works is dead." Meaning, in this context, you can have faith that God is going to do something amazing in your life regarding, for example, me with music. But if I don't put in the work, if I don't make the songs, if I don't share the music with anyone, how is he going to use it and work with it? I have to do my part, right? And same thing for you, for everyone, right? God puts something in our hearts to do, and it's up to us to practically step into that and do it. It's very simple. He's not gonna just do something amazing if you're not gonna do it, right? And that was very convicting when I kind of understood that concept that I have to do my part. I don't want to bury my talent. There's a parable where Jesus says that there was a master and he gave three servants talents or money at that time. But it's kind of cool. It's a play on words because in English, talents can also mean, like talents, like giftings that he gives us. But at that time in the parable, it's about money. And two of them reinvested the amount of money that the master gave them. And the master came back and was proud of them. Good job. But the third servant buried his talent. He buried the money and he didn't do anything with it because he was scared. Because he was scared. And the master was actually angry at that servant because he was lazy. And that's a very convicting parable because I don't want God to think of me like that. I want to use what he gave me and reproduce more and double it for his glory, right? So whatever God has called you to do, I encourage you to not bury it, but to use it. Work on your craft. Share it with people. He calls us to be the light on a hilltop, right? Because all of this that we do is not for ourselves. The world may do it for themselves to make money and to be famous. But if you're going to be walking with Jesus, it's to glorify him, lead people to him, right? And I just wanted to share this with you, to encourage you, to remind myself, and to hopefully shed some kind of light on how God works in regards to our callings and being patient and putting in the work. And, you know, even with all of this, our goal should be to get closer to Jesus. You know, you don't want to idolize the ministry God has given you. Yes, steward it well. Be a good steward of what God has done for you, but don't put that above God, right? You don't want to put your ministry above God. God is the one that gave it to you, right? You got to make sure you prioritize God first. Seek him first and his righteousness. And all these other things he'll add on to you, right? Matthew 6:33. So, just a reminder for myself and a reminder for you, um, to continue seeking him, and he will show you your life purpose in this season, because it may change in the future. You know, maybe in this season of your life, however old you are, he wants you to do this, but maybe 30 years from now, that will change, you know? So you got to leave it to God, surrender everything to him, and let him lead you into what you're supposed to do. And that's where you find true fulfillment, when you actually live life how you were created to be, you know? So, anyway, I don't want to talk too much. Hopefully, this encouraged you, and I'll see you on the next video, whatever that video is, or next song. But anyway, God bless.
Let it ride, let it ride. Don't forget to hit the line.